Hi, this is Matt Shepard. Coming up on this edition of Shep Shower and Shave, our observations from the weekend, why people are not buying into the University of Michigan football program and why it's a mistake. The Lions get ready for the Arizona Cardinals. How much do you believe in them? And how about the rebuild that the Tigers are going through? You don't know the names. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to be patient enough? That's a huge question mark for people in this town because of the patience they've already displayed with that franchise and with teams in this market in general. Glad you're with us. We're brought to you by Northwestern Tech. Heating and cooling employers are desperate for trained technicians. You know where they go? They go to Northwestern Tech. HVAC is all they teach. They've perfected their hands-on program for the last 38 years. How do you get a hold of them? Easy. There's two ways, actually. You can go to northwesterntech.edu or you can call them right now, 248-358-4006. We're brought to you by Nate Knopf Designs. You could see his work on Instagram or on Facebook. He put together the good-looking Shep Shower and Shave logo. And we're brought to you by Fifth Avenue in Royal Oak. They are your fantasy football draft headquarters. You want to be the best commissioner your league has ever had? You want people looking up to you? You want to set the gold standard? You can do that by having your draft headquarters at Fifth Avenue. Here's what you get: a private area with free Wi-Fi, a draft board, a dedicated server, a large pizza, drink and food specials for your league, and a Fifth Avenue fantasy football playbook for each person with 17 weeks of special Fifth Avenue deals. All you have to do is send your request to Fantasy Draft Party at fifthavroyaloak.com. That's Fantasy Draft Party at fifthavroyaloak.com. First thing I want to talk about today is the Detroit Tigers. We haven't discussed this in a while. Some of you may not be up for this because you don't know who the Tigers are. And isn't that part of the fun? It's not when they're losing. I know that, okay? I mean, I just talked to Ned Yost the other day in the Kansas City Royals clubhouse. He said, look, we're going to go through this, too, coming up. And we've been through it. Kansas City's been through it. Houston's been through it. Cubs have been through it. And the Tigers are about to go through it. The hard thing for us is we want to gravitate toward a guy we believe in. You don't know who to believe in right now. You used to believe, like I did, in Ian Kinsler, but he's batting .240 this year. He's a shell of himself. He looks dead. It's tough, man. When you came here to win a ring, and you had J.D. Martinez in a corner, and Justin Verlander in a corner, Max Scherzer in a corner, and Anibal Sanchez in a corner, and Miguel Cabrera in a corner, and Victor Martinez in a corner, and you're looking around, and you're thinking to yourself, who do I got? With all due respect, I got Alex Presley. I got Mikey Matuk. I got Jacoby Jones. Think about this. Next to him, it used to be Justin Upton. Now he's got Brian Holiday at his locker stall. So that's a tough adjustment for him. And it's looked like it's affected him. Of course, he hasn't had a good year at all season long, but it looks like it's affected him. You want to believe in Jose Iglesias. I don't know how much longer Jose Iglesias is going to be around here, man. I mean, he made close to $5 million. Look what he's batting. I mean, he's a wizard defensively. I love watching him play defense. Does he ham and egg it a little bit? Is he kind of a showboat? Sure. So what? I mean, he has fun. He enjoys it. What kind of teammate is he? Well, that's a good debate. That's up to the polling of the clubhouse and whether or not they feel he's worth the money and whether or not he's worth putting up with what some would consider a headache. He can play, but is his production equivalent enough to what you're paying him? Outside of that, you're searching. And so am I. I like James McCann a lot. James McCann has the second highest batting average since July 16th of any major league catcher. He's hit safely in like 25, 26, 27, 28 of his last 36 games. He's really done a nice job of leading by example. I believe he's a cornerstone for this franchise. Outside of that, you and I, our guesses are as good as anybody else's. At the beginning of the year, you're looking at a rotation of Justin Verlander and Michael Fulmer and Jordan Zimmerman and Daniel Norris and Matthew Boyd. Now, Your rotation consists of Artie Lewicki. Who? Artie Lewicki. Chad Bell. Zimmerman's now hurt. Anibal Sanchez. Matthew Boyd. Buck Farmer. That's scary. It really is. I mean, that's scary shit. You don't know what you were going to get on any particular night. Verlander, you knew you'd get a battle. Fulmer, you knew you would get a battle. Now, you're not sure. And what's even more concerning, I think, for Tigers fans is the younger guys they would like to buy in, Daniel Norris, Matthew Boyd, have not given them the reason to buy in. So you're uncertain. That's what this team is. I would suggest this, and this is hard for us to do because the word patience is difficult in the English language today. We always blame kids for wanting everything right away. We as adults sports fans, we want instant gratification too, man. And I get it. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I watched a family walk into Comerica Park. They're all excited. They hand the usher their tickets, and I thought to myself, they just paid to see Chad Bell start for the first time. And then I walked in the other day, and I thought, they're going to go see Artie Lewicki make his Major League debut, which can be exciting for some, but for others, little kid tugging on his dad's sleeve, Daddy, who is starting? Dad's supposed to have the answers, right? Dad has no idea. He doesn't know he's an 8th-round draft pick out of the University of Virginia. He can tell little Johnny all he wants, hey, you know what? He was really good in the College World Series. He only allowed one earned run. Even though the Cavaliers didn't win it all, Johnny, he was really, really good. Doesn't matter. You don't know him. You had a guy starting at first base, Efrain Navarro. It's a great story. His ability to weave his way through the minor leagues and get to make his Major League debut, it's really cool. But guess what? He's wearing 74, man. I mean, you got somebody in September wearing 74. That's spring training all over again. I was talking with Chris McCoskey of the Detroit News, Jason Beck of DetroitTigers.com and MLB.com. And these guys, they're down in Lakeland. They see it. That's what this feels like to them. It probably feels like that for you, too. It's about, I'm trying to get to know these guys. I'm trying to get to know their names. I'm trying to figure out what they look like. I'm trying to figure out what they're going to bring. Then I can maybe start to believe in who they are. Until that time comes, it's going to be really difficult. It's a huge challenge. There are some guys that I still enjoy watching. I mentioned McCann. I like watching Mikey Montook. I think it's a really cool story out of LSU. Yes, that's not what it's about. It's not about, hey, he won a College World Series with the Tigers. He's battled his way through the minor leagues. He struggled in Tampa. He's come here. He's proven himself. Yes, but it's a little bit deeper than that. It's the whole background story, losing his father at the age of 4, really being that hero for his twin sisters when they were from the starting age of 2. It's Alex Presley, who bided his time as a platoon player and now is showing signs of life to say to the Tigers, listen, when you think about your roster next year, when we're headed to Lakeland, don't forget about me because I can play and I can add a different dimension. And he can. He adds a little bit of speed. He adds a little bit of slap. He can find his way into the gaps. That's really good. I want guys like that. I want both those guys. Do I want them getting 500 at-bats a game or a season, I should say? No. Do I want Jacoby Jones getting 500 at-bats a season? No. Do I want Efrain Navarro at first base? He's got a really good glove, but I do not want him as a cleanup hitter? No. This team has gone from a team full of collected, designated hitters, Victor Martinez, J.D. Martinez, Miguel Cabrera, Nick Castellanos to a certain extent, to now a team with role players. I would love to see Mikey Montook and Alex Presley share duties in center field or a corner outfield next year for this team. That'd be great. But in order for that to happen, somebody else has to assume the role and starting position in center field. And that means Jacoby Jones has got to hit better than freaking 174. It means this team's got to find a left fielder. Is that Christian Stewart? I don't know. Is that Michael Gerber? I don't know. But if not next year for a guy like Michael Gerber who's 25, will be 26, when is it? Christian Stewart, you don't want to rush it too much because you sure don't want to break kids' confidences or confidence. But damn, this is a hell of a deal. This is a hell of a struggle right now for us to adapt to, as well as the franchise in general. I was talking with Ned Yost. Ned Yost truly believes, he said, hey, you know what? They got a good haul for Justin Verlander. You and I may not completely be able to absorb that comment because we don't know what those guys look like just yet. We don't know Daz Cameron. We know Mike Cameron. We see two 19-year-olds. And what we thought collectively is Justin Verlander is going to equate to major league ready talent. And it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because A, a $28 million price tag, B, the Tigers farm system stinks or has stunk for so long. Think about the guys they're getting in return for some of these players. And now where they rank among the best prospects in the Tigers organization. They shoot right into the top 10. The reason they shoot into the top 10 is because Detroit's top 10 wasn't all that great. And that's unfortunate, but that's reality. So the Tigers are going to be a tough follow in September. It's going to be really hard to get you to jump on board in 2018 too. But I would remind you that some of those teams that I talked about before were able to turn it around. And I would also remind you back in 2003, remember how bad that was? It took 3 years. In 2006, what happened? This team's going to have to piece it together. They're going to need some of the guys on this current team to be as good as they've been this year. Matuk, Presley, McCann, for example. Castellanos, quite honestly. They're going to need the players they traded for or the players they traded away and got in return to be everything this organization and its scouting department thought it was going to be. And hopefully their ascent is accelerated. And I don't mean guys like Matt Manning, who's finishing up in West Michigan this year. He'll probably start in Lakeland next year, then get to Double-A. Don't want to rush that 19-year-old too quickly. But I mean the other guys. I mean Candelario. Jamer Candelario has got to be your everyday third baseman, and he's got to be good. I don't expect him to be an all-star. I don't expect him to be Chris Bryant. But I do expect him to be damn good and an everyday player. And then Al Avila's got to find the right mix as he pares down that payroll from $200 million to $150 million to figure out those missing pieces and guys who can keep you afloat and keep you competitive. A free agent here or there, and a guy who's a little bit more Major League Baseball ready. This rebuild, as they keep talking about, is not for 2018. It's not for 2019. It's for 2020 and 21. That's when this team, and that's when you and I will know on whether or not these trades were truly worth it. And that's when we'll know this team is good enough. That's when we hope to see the fruits of the labor, fruits of the trades come to fruition. That's what we're hoping for. I watched as much of the Michigan-Florida game as I could because I was covering Tigers as well. DVR'd it, went back, watched it. I get why people were disappointed, frustrated at Wilton Spate's 2 interceptions returned for 6. I understand why people were mocking the Wolverines a little bit on Twitter, saying that, sure, he was bringing in John O'Korn because that was the plan all along. Wink, wink, wink. Well, it was the plan all along. It was. These two have been very competitive throughout camp, and O'Korn had closed the gap on Wilton Spate. That race between those two was closer than the race between Brandon Peters and Dylan McCaffrey. Everybody wants Brandon Peters because the guy can flat out spin it. He's got a great arm. He's got an NFL arm. He's not even close, man. O'Korn and Spate were neck and neck. Peters and McCaffrey actually, I kind of misspoke there. McCaffrey actually is really close to Brandon Peters. So all the Michigan fans who want the third-string quarterback, they don't want the second-string quarterback, they want the third-string quarterback. This is not the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, it's always, who's the backup quarterback? That's the one the fans, all the fans want. Wolverine fans, they want the third-string quarterback, a guy they've seen in 2 spring games. That's it. But anyway, I think there's a national belief that Michigan cannot win their division, their conference, or if you want to say a Final Four national championship or whatever, go right ahead. I think that would be a little bit of a stretch for even the most diehard Michigan fan. But I would tell you this. There were a lot of people who doubted Penn State last year because of what? Their youth. And they won the conference. There were a lot of people doubting Ohio State. Why? Because of their youth. And look at what they did. They got to the Final Four. I think it's dangerous for us to say Michigan can't win because they're too young. You know what trumps youth? Now, experience is important. I'm not poo-pooing that. I think it's really important, especially when you go from high school to the collegiate level, and especially when you're going from high school to the Big Ten. But after watching them play Florida, if you're not ready to admit, and there's going to be learning curves, I totally get it. I'm not saying they're out there and they're going to be 4-time All-Americans. They're going to be 4-time All-Big Ten selections, that they're ready to jump to the next level right away. I'm just telling you right now, don't confuse youth being in the way of talent. And I mean rich talent. I'm talking about Kakoa Crawford. I'm talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm talking about Tariq Black. These guys can flat out play. They're high level. I mean high end. Most teams, you lose 3 offensive linemen. You lose your 3 best receivers, right? Chesson, Darbo, and Butt. You lose your leading rusher. You lose 10 starters on the defensive side of the ball. You lose your punter. You lose your kicker. That devastates a program. What Jim Harbaugh has been able to do is replenish that program with not just quality numbers, but guys who can come in and compete not for playing time, but for starting time. It kind of goes back to my discussion with the Tigers. You got a lot of Tigers out there who are competing for what they hope will be a roster spot next year, but you have other Tigers out there competing for what they hope will be starting positions next year. They're trying to make a lasting impression. I belong here. I should be in center field. I should be in right field. I should be at shortstop. If you get rid of Ian Kinsler, Dixon Machado, I can be at second base. They're trying to build your confidence. That's what this Michigan football team is doing for you, or should be doing for you right now. Instead of you focusing on Wilton Spate's 2 mistakes, you should also understand he had some pretty good throws in that game against Florida, who's got a damn good defense, by the way. Don't lose sight of the fact that they're a top 17 or top 20 team, ranked 17th going into that game. Don't lose sight that they've got a really good defense too, and will prove to have a very good defense when all is said and done. They're not Alabama. I'm not saying they are, but they're pretty damn good. Don't worry about Ohio State until you have to play Ohio State, because that's what Michigan fans do. Oh, boy. We got Florida. Here are the big games. Florida, Wisconsin, because it's at Madison. Penn State, because it's at Happy Valley. And Ohio State at home. Those are the 4 key games, Shep. Okay. Well, I'm not asking you to get all jacked up while they get ready for Cincinnati. I'm just telling you just beat Florida. It was a pretty damn good win. Okay? You made some mistakes? Yes. It's the first flipping game of the year. Every team made mistakes. Ohio State was down 21-20, right? Were people crapping themselves in Columbus? You better believe it. They were upset. How can this happen to us against Indiana, for crying out loud? There's plenty of teams out there. You don't think USC fans are a little disappointed, a little bit shocked, a little bit upset? Kevin Sumlin's a really good coach at Texas A&M, isn't he? Did you see the lead he blew against UCLA on the left coast? Okay. And I know, look, I'm not asking you to care about those teams, because what you care about is your team. That's fine. I totally understand that. I'm just letting you know, week one, oftentimes you're going to see some mistakes because for a lot of these guys, it's their first time. Imagine if some of those guys, imagine if this was a team built with all kinds of experience. And yes, you're right. I mean, Wilton Speight does have experience. So you have a right to be upset at the picks. How about the fact that he played through them? Yeah, that's part of it too. I think that shows an awful lot of gumption. I think it shows guts. I think it shows resolve. I think it shows leadership. I'm not trying to convince you he's going to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten and he's ready to jump to the pros. I'm telling you right now, you don't have to worry about it so incessantly right now that makes you say, I got to see Brandon Peters, the third-string quarterback. The defense, phenomenal. But I would like to know why people are so surprised. And the reason I say that is because you had plenty of guys in that front four who played last year. And you had plenty of guys on the back end who played last year as well. My biggest concern was the linebackers, and the linebackers played pretty damn well. Because should you expect 11 yards rushing against overall and the type of pressure they were able to apply on a regular basis? I don't know. Probably not. But it's a hell of a start. I just caution people, when they think about Michigan, they think about youth. And I think that's, I understand it because you're getting used to, again, like the Tigers, you're getting used to names. Just remember, most of that youth, most of those guys coming in are high-end guys. They're playmakers. The moment is not too big. In the past, long time ago, you would see guys come in and they would be young players and they would be in awe of where they've played, okay? Oh, my gosh, we're playing at Michigan Stadium. There's 100,000 people here. Oh, my gosh, I'm playing at Texas Stadium. It's a dream come true. They let the moment almost overwhelm them. I was talking with Jake Rudock at Lions Camp, and I remember talking to him about playing in an NFL stadium. And he said, well, you got to understand something. First of all, I played a year at Michigan, and I played in front of 100,000. He said, but think about this. My 3 years in high school, I opened up Paul Brown Stadium, I opened up at the Horseshoe, and I opened up at Cowboy Stadium. Okay, his high school team had James White and Gio Bernard and Rashad Green and Phil Dorsett. He is not in awe of that. These kids, more and more of them, are playing in those big stadiums. Now, some of them, I'm used to playing in front of 100. Now I'm playing in front of 100,000. Yeah, it's a great quote, and it's an appropriate one. I'm just telling you that the way sports has gone, whether it be 7-on-7s or travel or IMG Academy or whatever, you're giving more of these kids are getting the opportunity to play in front of massive crowds that allows them to make the adjustment and adapt a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. That's all. I think Michigan's going to be really good, but it's funny. I was looking at the Big Ten Network, and they gave your weekly power rankings, and they had Ohio State 1 and Penn State 2 and Michigan 3. And I thought, fair enough, because that's how it started at the beginning of the year, right? That's how you pick the division. But if you're basing it off the first week performance, Michigan should be higher. Ohio State, though on the road, played a substandard Indiana team and trailed in the third quarter. Penn State, though impressive, played at home and blew out who? Akron? 52-0? The test, the ultimate test. Look, Maryland's win at Texas was good. Texas isn't as good as Florida. Michigan had one of the more impressive wins of the weekend. Not just who they beat, but how they beat them. Their defense didn't allow a touchdown, man. They allowed a field goal. The other 2 TDs are against their offense, basically, right? I'm just saying, based on the first week performance, your eye test, and maybe just the defense isn't enough. Maybe you're looking at all 3 phases. And I'm not saying Michigan's better than Ohio State or Penn State right now, necessarily. I'm telling you power rankings, which should factor in quality opponent, where it was played, and how you beat them. And if you do look at that, there's no question the conclusion is Michigan had the best win, no doubt. It was on neutral site, and they beat the best opponent of those 3. And it wasn't as decisive as Penn State, but it's pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. They're going to be good. They're going to have some hiccups, no question. It's going to be difficult at Madison. It's going to be difficult at Penn State. And it's going to be a challenge at home against Ohio State. Michigan State, on the other hand, I don't know what you take out of that game against Bowling Green. I really don't. I mean, you put it on the carpet a couple of times, but you beat a team you were supposed to beat. Was it as emphatically as you wanted it to be? No, I'm not sure what that score should have been for Michigan State fans for them to be satisfied. This weekend, you should be on guard. You should be on guard because Western Michigan, though their circus ringleader, P.J. Fleck, is now in Minnesota, has some really good players. And they scared the crap out of USC. You know it and I know it. I mean, that's one you were all following. When you're tied in the third quarter at USC against the top 25 team, against a Heisman Trophy candidate and all that, you're going to get a lot of people's attention. And don't kid yourself. It's not like they're satisfied. They don't go out there and come back and go, hey, you know what? It's all right. We did a good job of hanging in there with USC. Nobody takes that mindset. Coaches don't take it, and players don't take it. There is an expectation. That's what makes them different. There is an expectation. Real quick story. I was talking to Ian Kinsler as soon as the Tigers traded Justin Verlander and Justin Upton. And I said, this makes you less competitive on the field. He didn't like it one bit, and I respect the hell out of that. He didn't like it. You know why he didn't like it? Because I challenged his competitiveness. They expect to go out and win every single day. Why would you play the game if you didn't? So don't think that Western Michigan is going to go into East Lansing, be scared, worried, and hope to have a good game. Not if you sit there and you go, we went undefeated until our bowl game last year. Not if you sit there and say, we beat Northwestern and Illinois last year. Not if you sit there and look at it and say, we had a chance and should have done more to beat USC. Not if you sit there and say, last year we had a chance and felt like we should have beaten Wisconsin. They're going to go into East Lansing. They're going to jump off the bus. They're going to hit that locker room. They're going to put their pads on. They're going to write stuff on the whiteboard. And then when they get together, kneel down, hold hands, and talk to one another, they're going to say, we should win this game today. That should make Michigan State fans exceptionally nervous. They beat that team, then they might be in a little bit better shape than you think. And I know that's when a lot of people go, oh, come on, give me a break, beating a MAC team. No, bull roar. The MAC has got some good teams. They scare the hell out of a lot of teams. It's one oftentimes big program coaches circle and say, I'm a little leery of this one. Think about this. It's the reason a lot of those big-time coaches don't want to go to the MAC stadiums. I give certain programs credit. Pitt, when they were ranked 9th, going into Toledo. Guess what? They're never doing that again because they lost. State's done it. I give them credit for doing that too. It can be a scary proposition for their teams. Shep Shower and Shave is brought to you by Northwestern Tech, by Fifth Avenue in Royal Oak, and by Nate Noth Designs. You find his work on Instagram or on Facebook. The Lions are using this week to get ready for the Arizona Cardinals. I would argue this. Detroit's biggest test. I don't know what their record's going to be. I know what people want to predict. if you predict 8-8, you take a whole bunch of crap from people because you're not making a statement, which to me is stupid. You're trying to be correct when you make a prediction, right? I think this team can go 9-7 again. But the first 8 games, when you're playing Eli Manning and you're playing Matt Ryan and you're playing Drew Brees and you're playing Cam Newton, Carson Palmer to a certain extent, these are big challenges, big-time challenges. I know you get Green Bay twice at the back end and so on and so forth, but you sure as hell cannot afford to start 2-6. 3-5 will be a challenge. If you said to me they're going to be 4-4 after the first 8 games, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. I'd like it to be a little bit better than that, 5-3, for example. I'd be really happy. That's the way the NFL is. This team, and especially if that means it bridges the gap to get to Taylor Decker. Now, they've got their 53-man roster out. Still a chance to add some defensive pressure sometime down the line. I'm not a big proponent of going out and getting a 35-year-old pass rusher like Robert Mathis because he can just be a situational guy. Guess who's going to be a situational guy to start? Ziggy Ansah. Ziggy Ansah's not going out there and playing 40 snaps. It's not going to happen. He hasn't practiced at all until this week. So he's going to be active, and what you're going to see is you're going to see him in obvious passing situations. The biggest concern you have, the biggest concern I have, is the ability to put pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. You see, Matt Stafford's been sacked 126 times the last 3 years. Other teams are doing that. Detroit rectified that situation, you hope. I mean, Greg Robinson didn't get a whole lot of play. In other words, play as in discussion, debate, articles written, observations made while he's playing on social media after the first preseason game. You know why? Because he's good. Because he's solidified it. He had a good camp. When they're not talking about you as an offensive lineman, that's the best news you can take. That's good for you as an offensive line. You don't want them talking about you. So up front, I think they're in pretty good shape. My hope is that they're going to average better than 82 yards per game like they did a year ago. If they average 82 yards a game this year on the ground and they're ranked 30th, you and I are going to be gravely disappointed. This team, I'm not expecting this team to average 120 yards per game on the ground because I don't think they're going to run the football that much. That's not the way this team is built. This team is built to throw the football. Good teams in the NFL, the good teams in the NFL, they have a balance. You and I both know that. I want this team to have balance. That's all I've asked for. I'm not asking for Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, Earl Campbell-like numbers. Dan Pastorini needed to hand the ball to Earl Campbell 35 times a game because they didn't have the type of passing game that the Detroit Lions possess. Matt Stafford's not alone in this. There are other quarterbacks who rely on the pass. You know what? You know why? Because those quarterbacks are really freaking good. Andrew Luck is good. Aaron Rodgers is good. Cam Newton is good. Drew Brees is good. Tom Brady's good. All those really good quarterbacks, they throw the ball more than they run it. Why? Because that quarterback's the best player on their football team. You want him to throw. But you can't do it as often as Stafford has done year in and year out. Or more importantly, you can't have the discrepancy of passing attempts to running attempts because you can't run the damn football. So what Detroit's going to have to do is have that balance. A healthy Amir Abdullah, a healthy Theo Riddick should go a long way to helping this team. Rick Wagner, TJ Lang, a long way to help this team. Greg Robinson solidifying. I'm not concerned about the offense. I don't know what Eric Ebron's going to have for you because you didn't see that guy practice but once on a Friday in Indianapolis, and it was only with individual and team drills, and that was it. This week, he's out there. Good for him. He hasn't played all preseason. Let's see how that factors into this. Is it going to be used as an excuse? Or is it going to be used for fans and media as a reason on why preseason isn't important? Maybe there's somewhere lying in between. I'm not sure. Defensively, I like their secondary. I like Tavon Wilson and Glover Quinn and Miles Killebrew as safeties. I really do. I'm excited to watch Miles Killebrew. I think he could be a starter for this team. I like Nevin Lawson and Darius Slay at the corners. A little concerned about Quandre Diggs as a nickel. Didn't play in the fourth preseason game, which tells me they like him as the nickel as well. I'd prefer to see a little bit more of DJ Hayden and Tease Tabor, because I don't think Quandre Diggs had a very good season last year. I don't think he's been very good in the preseason. I'm more concerned about this team's front 7/8 than I am anything else on defense. I like A'Shawn Robinson. Haloti Ngata, rotational guy for me. Ziggy Ansah, don't know what he's going to have, because you thought he'd have had more than what he showed last year. If he's the Ziggy Ansah of 2 years ago, you and I are slapping 5, giving a thumbs up, and excited about this direction of the football team. I would tell you this, in order for him to have that type of success, I do believe it's going to require some consistent play from the interior, and there's going to have to be somebody else opposite Ziggy Ansah who raises their game. Anthony Zettel is a good example of that. Can this team get by without guys like Kyrie Thornton and Armonte Bryant until they come back 4 and 6 games, whatever it may be for those individuals, and still be in contention? And then you get to the linebackers. Now, they cut Antoine Williams. That surprised me. Jim Caldwell told us before the game on Thursday, the final preseason game, anybody you see out there on the field is competing for a job. Okay. Antoine Williams is starting. That threw up a red flag for everybody in the room when we had our meeting with Jim Caldwell. In other words, he hasn't shown enough. And basically what Antoine Williams lost out to was Paul Warlow, Nick Bellore. Nick Bellore started 14 of the 16 games, I believe, last year against San Francisco. He had a career-high 86 tackles. He's been a starter in this league, and he adds special teams because his first 3 years with the Jets, he was really good on special teams. We know there's Davis and Whitehead to start, all right? And then you've got Jalen Reeves-Maben. But we originally thought he was going to be just a special teamer. He turned out to have a really good game in the final game against Buffalo, where Antoine Williams, we barely called his name. There's the concern for Antoine Williams and the coaching staff. A little surprised he didn't get called back to practice squad, but hey, you know what? You feel like you made a mistake and you move on. I give him credit for that. Doesn't take away from the fact that I'm still concerned about this team's defensive line and linebacking unit. And I'd probably say that even if Armonte Bryant and Kyrie Thornton were still around anyway. I don't see how this team is going to be able to put the pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which leads me back to the first 8 games again because of who they're playing. And I know you get Aaron Rodgers twice on the back end. That's scary too. If you're not going to get pressure on these type of established quarterbacks, Drew Brees, former MVP, Cam Newton, former MVP, Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl winner, Carson Palmer, desperate for his chance at a ring. You see the players who they're about to face. You see the concerns you should have with a pass rush. Now think about if you don't have a pass rush. If this team is going to generate 26 sacks like it did a year ago, this is going to be a serious issue for this club. You and I know every single week it seemed like, and really it was true for most cases, the best quarterback in the NFL was playing against the Detroit Lions. Not because he's the best quarterback in the NFL, but because the Lions defense allowed him to put up best quarterback in the NFL numbers. You know how you change that? Pass rush. You change it by getting in his face, collapsing pockets, and making sure he's uncomfortable. If they're going to sit back, pat the football 3 times, You give them 4.5 seconds to pick apart your defense. That ain't on Nevin Lawson and Darius Slay and Glover Quinn and the rest of those guys. That's on the fellas up front who aren't getting the type of pressure you expect them to get. Starts against Arizona on Sunday at Ford Field. Can't wait for it. I hope you can listen to our Lions Live postgame show. Me, Rob Rubick, and Lomas Brown, Fox Sports Detroit, right after the game. We'll have interviews with coaches, interviews with players. We'll have a breakdown and opinions, plus all the stats that you require. That's every single game after the Lions play, whether it be on the road or at home. Hope you can join us, and hope you can join us later this week for another edition of Shep Shower and Shave, brought to you by Nate Noth Designs. Check out his work on Instagram, on Facebook. By Northwestern Tech. Call them today, 248-358-4006. And by Fifth Avenue in Royal Oak.